Good morning, students. Welcome to 7th Standard Social Science. Geography, 3rd Unit, Population and Settlement. So children, listen carefully to this session. In case of any doubts, make a note of it which shall be clarified on the day of reopening. So children, now let's enter into our lesson. Population geography is a study of demographic phenomena which includes natality, mortality, growth rates, etc. through both space and time. So population geography is a study of population related to a specific area and the culture practiced in the specific area. Increase or decrease in population indicates population distribution and growth. So, the increase and decrease of population rates, it indicates the population distribution in a particular area and the growth. Then, the study of movements and mobility of population is called migration. So, the study of movement and mobility, that is, people moving from one place to another place in search of food, shelter, job, employment. So, the study of movement and mobility of population is called migration. So, migration means moving from one place to another. And the ancient origin is grouped under major races such as language and religion. So, in ancient period, the people were grouped under specific race based on the language they are speaking and the religion they are practicing. So now let's see what are the races in the world. So before seeing the different types of races, first you have to know the definition for a race. Race has been defined as a biological grouping within the human species. So race is biological grouping within the human species based on their facial characteristics or some other physical characteristic or based on the place where they are living. So now let's see. The race is a group of people with more or less permanent distinguishing characteristics that are inherited. So inherited means from father to son. So like that, from generations. So the most widely found human racial types are based on visual traits such as head shape, facial features, nose shape, eye shape and color, skin color, stature, blood groups, etc. So the groupings are done based on their facial features or the shape or the eye color or the skin color and the blood groups. So now let's see what are the 4 major types of races in the world. The major world human races are, first one is the Caucasoid race, they are the Europeans, and second one is Negroid race, they are Africans, and third one Mongoloid race, they are Asiatic, that is they belongs to Asia, and finally Australoid race, they are Australians. So now let's see the characteristic features for each race. So first one is Caucasoid race. The Caucasoid is known as European race. This group is the one with fair skin and dark brown eyes, wavy hair and narrow nose. The Caucasoid are also found in Eurasia. So children, the Caucasoid race, they have fair skin, dark brown eyes and wavy hair and also narrow nose, and they are also found in Eurasia. So this is the characteristic feature of Caucasoid race. They are also called European race. So now let's move on to the second type of race, that is Negroid race. So the Negroid race are the Africans. The Negroid have the dark eyes, black skin, black woolly hair, wide nose, long head and thick lips. They are living in different parts of Africa. So the Negroid have dark eyes, black skin, black woolly hair, wide nose, long head and thick lips, and they belong to Africa. The third type of race is Mongoloid race. So they are Asiatic, that is they belongs to Asia. The Mongoloid race is commonly known as the Asian American race. The Mongoloid have the light yellow to brown skin, straight hair, flat face, broad head and medium nose. Such people are found in Asia and Arctic region. So the Mongoloid race, they have light yellow to brown skin, straight hair, flat face, broad head and medium nose. So they are found in Asia and Arctic region. And finally, the Australoid race. So the Australoid race belongs to Australia. The Australioids have wide nose, curly hair, dark skin and short in height. They are living in Australia and Asia. So the Australioid have wide nose, curly hair, dark skin and they are short in height and they are living in Australia and Asia. So these are the 4 major type of races in the world. So now let's see the races of India. So what are the different types of races present in India? So we all know that India is said to be one of the cradle lands of human civilization. So India is the cradle land of human civilization. Why? Because the ancient Indus Valley civilization in India was believed to have been of Dravidian origin in northern India. The Dravidian people were pushed south when the Indo-Aryans came in later. So children, India is called the cradle of human civilization because of the Indus Valley civilization. Then the South Indian kingdom, that is the South India, was dominated by 3 Dravidian kingdoms of the Cheras, the Cholas and the Pandyas. So in the south, the 3 major Dravidian kingdoms are the Cheras, the Cholas and the Pandyas. So now let's see the major languages in India. So first one is Tamil and second one is Telugu, then Kannada, then Malayalam, Tulu. So Tulu is a language which is spoken in Udupi district in Karnataka. So now let's move on to religion. So before seeing the major types of religion practiced in India, first you have to know the definition for a religion. Religion means a particular system of faith and worship which brings human being with human society. Religion is a symbol of group identity and a cultural rallying point. So religion means it is a particular way of worshipping the God and it is a symbol of group identity and a cultural rallying point. So now let's see the classification of religion. So what are the major classification of religion? So first one is universalizing religions. Universalizing religion means universally accepted religions. So first one is Christianity, second is Islam and third one is Buddhism. So these 3 comes under universalizing religions: Christianity, Islam and Buddhism. The second category of religion is ethnic religions. The ethnic religions are based on certain moral values or ethnic values. So first one is Judaism, second is Hinduism and third one is Japanese Shintoism. So Japanese Shintoism. So now let's move on to the third category, that is tribal or traditional religions. So tribal means the people who live in the forest areas or near the mountain areas. So tribal or traditional religions, mostly they worship their objects or the trees or the plants or the animals. So first one is animism and second one is shamanism and shaman. So animism, shamanism and shaman. So these are all the categories of religion. So first one is universalizing religion, then ethnic religion and this is tribal or traditional religion. So now let's see the place of worship for each religion. The places of worship for each religion. So first one is Buddhism. So Buddhism, the place of worship is Vihara. So Buddhism, the place of worship is Vihara. And second one is Christianity. So Christianity, the place of worship is church. So Christianity is church. And third one is Hindus. So Hindus, the place of worship is temple. So Hinduism is temple. And Islam. So Islam is mosque. Islam, the place of worship is mosque. And then Jainism. So Jainism is Basari. Jainism, the place of worship is Basari. So the next one is Judaism. Judaism, the place of worship is synagogue. Judaism, the place of worship is synagogue. And next one is Zoroastrianism. Zoroastrianism, the place of worship is Agyari. Agyari. So children, make a note of all the religion and the place of worship. It may be asked in one word. So now let's move on to language. So before seeing the different types of language speaking in India, first you have to know the definition for a language. So what is a language? Language is a great force of socialization. Language, either in written or oral form, is the most common type of communication. So language is a great force of socialization. We can express our feelings, we can express our thoughts only through the way of language. So it may be either written format or it may be either in oral format. So what is the importance of language? So language promotes the transmission of ideas and the functioning of political, economic, social and religious system. So language, it promotes the transmission of ideas. So we can express our ideas or thoughts. So language is very important for proper functioning of political, economic, social and religious systems. So now let's move on to languages of India. So the languages of India. India has many languages and culture. Each state has its own language. So India has many language and culture. So that's why India is called the land of unity in diversity. So India has many languages and culture and each state has its own language. The national language of India is Hindi. So children, the national language of India is Hindi. And other than Hindi, there are 22 other official languages. So in India, the 22 major languages were spoken by about 97% population of the country. So India follows Kashmiri, Urdu, Punjabi, Hindi, Rajasthani, Gujarati, Bengali and Assamese, etc. These languages are followed in North India. So other than Hindi, there are 22 other major languages which are spoken by about 97% of the population. So like Kashmiri, Urdu, Punjabi, Rajasthani, Gujarati, Bengali and Assamese. So these languages are mostly spoken in North India. The main languages of the Dravidian family are Tamil, Telugu, Kannada and Malayalam. So these languages are mainly spoken in southern India, that is South India. So the main languages of the Dravidian family are Tamil, Telugu, Kannada and Malayalam, and these languages are mainly spoken in South India, that is southern India. With the different means of communication and fast-moving world advancement in technology helps in understanding of different languages very easily with easy access to electronic media along with its pronunciation. So nowadays, with the help of technology, we can easily learn other languages and also we can know the meanings of the words in other languages. So, the technology, it has brought the world very closer to us. The World Population Day is observed on July 11th every year. So, children, the World Population Day is observed on July 11th every year. And then, International Mother Language Day is observed on 21st February every year. So, International Mother Language Day is observed on 21st February every year. Then, third Sunday in January every year is observed as World Religious Day. So, the third Sunday in January every year is observed as World Religious Day. Then 21st May is World Day for Cultural Diversity. So 21st May is the day for cultural diversity, that is World Day for Cultural Diversity. So children, make a note of this. It may be asked in one word. So some of the other major languages in the world are, the most spoken languages in the world are English, Arabic, Spanish, Portuguese, Punjabi, Chinese, Russian, Japanese, Bengali, Hindi. So these are all the most spoken languages in the world. So now let's move on to settlement. So far we have seen about the different types of races in the world, and the races are categorized based on the facial features or the physical features and the religions or the place they are living. Now let's move on to settlement. So what is the definition of settlement? Settlement is a place where people live and interact through activities such as agriculture, trading and entertainment. So settlement is a place where the people live and interact through activities such as agriculture, trading and entertainment. So settlement means it is a place where people live. So now first see about rural settlement. So what is rural? So rural means along the countryside. So mainly the occupation are agriculture. So mainly they practice the primary activities, that is agriculture, and then lumbering, then fishing, then mining. So the rural settlement, they mainly rely on the primary activities such as agriculture, then lumbering and then fishing and mining. Then let's move on to urban settlement. So urban settlement, they are the city people. They mainly rely on the secondary and the tertiary activities, that is the industries. So first one is industries and then the trade and banking. So the urban settlement, they rely on industries and trading and banking. Next, we can see about the definition for site and situation. So what is a site and what is a situation? So site and situation refers to the location of actual settlement. The initial choice of a site for a settlement depends on how it is useful for meeting our daily needs like water supply, availability of farmland, building material and fuel, etc. So the site and situation means that is the actual place of settlement. So the choice are made depending upon the water supply, availability of farmland for agriculture purpose, then building material and fuel. Let's move on to old house types. So what are the types in which the houses were built in the early days? In the early periods of human settlement, houses were built using local materials. The form of the house was closely related to the environment. So in early days, the houses were built using the local materials means using the materials available in the environment. For example, the mud, clay. So using the local materials, they built the houses. Then, in the agricultural regions, houses were built with mud walls and the roof was made up of stalks of paddy or other crops of grass or thatch. Local wood was used to provide frame for the roof. Such old houses had wide verandas and an open air circulation. So in the agricultural region, the houses were built with mud walls and paddy roof made up of paddy stalks. So such old houses, they have wide verandas and an open air circulation. So now let's see what are the settlement patterns. So settlement patterns. The settlement patterns can be classified into, first one is compact settlement and second one is dispersed settlement. So the settlements also be classified into compact settlement and dispersed settlement. So let's see the definition for each. So first one is compact settlement. So from the name itself we can get compact means very close to each other. So let's see the definition for that. Compact settlement is also known as nucleated settlement. In this type, large number of houses are built very close to each other. Such settlement develop along the river valleys and fertile plains. In India, compact settlements are found in the northern plains and the coastal plains of peninsular India. So children, compact settlement is also called nucleated settlement, and in this type, large number of houses are very close to each other. As you see in the picture, the houses are built very close to each other. So usually this type of pattern is found near the river valley side and fertile plains. In India, this type of settlement is found in northern plains and the coastal plains of peninsular India. So now let's move on to the second type of settlement, that is dispersed settlement. So from the name, dispersed means spaced apart. So let's see the definition for it. Dispersed settlements are generally found in the areas of extreme climate, hilly tracts, thick forests, grasslands, areas of extensive cultivation. In these settlements, houses are spaced far apart and after interspersed with fields. So, in dispersed settlement, the houses are built with spaces between each. So, now let's see where the dispersed pattern is found in India. In India, this type of human settlement is found in northern Kosi tract, the Ganga Delta, the Thar Desert of Rajasthan and the foothills of Himalayas and the Nilgiris. So in India, the dispersed pattern of settlement can be found in northern Kosi tract, the Ganga Deltas, the Thar Desert of Rajasthan and the foothills of Himalayas and Nilgiris. Now let's see about the hierarchy of settlement. So settlement can be broadly classified into rural and urban settlement. So rural means pertaining to countryside, urban means pertaining to town or city. So rural can be further classified into isolated, hamlet, village, small market, town. So hamlet is much smaller than village. Then urban settlement can be classified into larger town, city, conurbation, which is also called megalopolis. So larger town, city, conurbation, which is also called megalopolis. So now let's see about rural settlement. So rural means pertaining to countryside. Rural settlements are predominantly located near water bodies such as rivers, lakes and springs where water can be easily available. So rural settlement are predominantly they located near the water bodies like rivers, lakes, streams because they need water supply for primary activities such as agriculture, lumbering, mining for every primary activity. Then people choose to settle near fertile lands suitable for agriculture along with the provision of other basic needs. Hence they prefer to live near low-lying river valleys and coastal plains suited for cultivation. So people choose to settle near the fertile river valleys because the soil will be suitable for agriculture purpose. Then what are the factors influencing rural settlement? So what are the factors which influence the rural settlement? So first one is the nature of topography, that is the nature of the soil, and then the local weather condition. So the weather condition of the place which is suitable for the particular cultivation of crops, and then the soil and water resources, and then the social organization and economic condition. So these are all the factors which influence the rural settlement. First one is the nature of topography, the weather condition, the soil and water resources, social organization and economic condition of the place. So what are the pattern of rural settlement? So now let's see what are the pattern mainly formed in rural settlement. The pattern of settlement has been defined as the relationship between the house or building to another. So the pattern of settlement is defined as the relationship between the one house to another house. So now let's see the pattern of rural settlement. It is linear. Second one is rectangular, circular and then star-like pattern, etc. So the four major patterns which are given in your textbook are linear, rectangular, circular and star-like pattern. So now let's see the diagram and the definition for each pattern. So first one is linear settlement or linear pattern. In a linear settlement, houses are arranged along the either side of a road, railway line, river or canal, the edge of the valley, etc. Example for such type of settlement is the Himalayas, the Alps and the Rockies. So linear settlement means the houses are aligned in a linear way, that is on either side of the roads. The next form of settlement is rectangular settlement. So when you look from the satellite view, the settlement will look in the shape of rectangle. The rectangular settlements are almost straight, meeting each other at right angles. So the rectangular settlements resembles in the form of rectangle, meeting each other at right angles. Rectangular settlement is found in plain areas. So such a settlement is found in plain areas. Example, Sutlej. So now let's move on to the third form of settlement, that is circular settlement. So let's see the definition. The houses built around the central area are known as circular pattern of settlements. Such settlements are developed around the lakes and tanks. So when you look at this picture, it resembles a circle shape. So the houses are built around a central area. So this type of pattern is called circular pattern, and such settlement are developed around the lakes and tanks. So let's move on to star-like pattern. So it resembles the shape of the star. So let's see the definition for it. The star-like pattern of settlements developed on the sites and place where several roads converge and houses spread out along the sides of the roads in all directions. So this type of pattern is formed where several rows converge, that is, it will bend, it will take lot of bends. So this type of pattern is found in the Indo-Ganga plains of Punjab and Haryana. So this type of pattern is found in the Indo-Ganga plains of Punjab and Haryana. So children, these images are the satellite view images. So children, do you know what is pilgrim settlement? Pilgrim settlement may come up around a place of worship or any spot with a religious significance. So when you visit a place for religious purpose, it comes under pilgrim settlement. So pilgrim settlement is a settlement mainly for religious significance. For example, visiting Thiruvarkadu in Tamil Nadu comes under pilgrim settlement. So I hope you are clear with this, and it is a temporary settlement because you will visit and then you will return to your native place. So now let's see what is wet point settlement. So wet means what? From the name itself we can get settlement around the water body areas. So let's see the definition of wet point settlement. A wet point is a site with reliable supply of water from wells, tanks, rivers, spring or pond in an area. So wet point is a settlement with reliable supply of water from wells, tank, rivers, spring or pond in an area. Now let's move on to dry point settlement. So let's see the definition for it. A dry point settlement is located in low-lying areas in the regions of excessive dampness, that is, less water available. Dry point settlements are not affected by flooding. So because there is no water, so it will not be affected by flooding due to the landscape and the source of water. Such settlements are found in the coastal plains of Kerala and deltas along the east coast of India. So this type of dry point settlements are found in the coastal plains of Kerala and deltas along the east coast of India. Now let's move on to urban settlement. So urban means pertaining to city or town life. The settlements in which most of the people are engaged in secondary and tertiary activities are known as urban settlements. In other words, urban is related to cities and towns. The word urban is often used in terms of town, city, megacity, conurbation and megalopolis. So children, the settlement in which the people are engaged in secondary and tertiary activities. So secondary means industry related activities. Tertiary is banking and trading purpose. It is called urban settlement. In other words, cities and towns. Now let's see the classification of urban settlements. The definition of urban area varies from one country to another. Some of the common bases of classification are, so let's see the classification. First one is, it depends upon the size of population, and then occupational structure, then administration. So children, the urban settlements are classified based on the size of population in the particular area, or the occupational structure and administration. So first let's see about town. So how the urban settlement are classified as town. Town is a general name for an urban place, usually a settlement meeting a prescribed minimum population threshold. So the population more than 5,000 people. So the urban settlement comes under town if the population is more than 5,000 people. So town means the population should be more than 5,000 people. So I hope you are clear. Based on the function that cities perform, they can be classified into the following types of towns, such as administrative towns or cantonment towns or academic towns. So based on the functions of the particular city, they are classified as administrative or cantonment. So cantonments are military related towns and academic towns. Then city. So let's see what is the definition for a city. The term city is generally applied to a large urban place. So it is larger than the town, with no strict definition to separate it from a smaller town. So it is larger than town is called city. City is a nucleated settlement which multifunctional in character. So the city is nucleated settlement and it is multifunctional, including an established central business district. In India, an urban place with more than 1 lakh population is considered as a city. So more than 5,000 population means it is town. More than 1 lakh population means it is city with a business district. I hope you are clear. So now let's see what is mega city. So the definition for mega. So mega means big. So let's see the definition. Mega city is a very large city, typically with a population of more than 10 million people. So mega city is a very large city with a population of more than 10 million. Example for such cities are Canton, Tokyo. In India it is Delhi, Mumbai are some of the examples of mega cities. Single metropolitan area. So children, the example in India are Delhi and Mumbai. It is very larger than city and the population is more than 10 million people. Now let's see megalopolis. So what is megalopolis? So let's see the definition for it. The word megalopolis is given for a large conurbation when two or more large cities whose total population exceeds 10 million. The region made up of cities between Boston and Washington DC is well-known megalopolis. In India, Kolkata is the largest urban area which is a megalopolis. Then Gandhinagar, Surat, Vadodara, Rajput in Gujarat are the important megalopolis cities in India. So children, megalopolis means when two or more large cities, they combinedly called as megalopolis and whose total population exceeds 10 million, that is over 10 million. Example for such megalopolis is Boston and Washington DC, and in India, Kolkata is the largest urban area which is a megalopolis. Then Gandhinagar, Surat, Vadodara, Rajput in Gujarat are the important megalopolis cities in India. So now let's move on to conurbation. So conurbation is the urban region including the adjacent towns, nearby towns. So let's see the definition. A conurbation is a region comprising of number of cities, large town and other urban areas that through population growth and physical expansion have merged to form one continuous urban or industrially developed area. So conurbation means it is a combination of other cities and towns and other urban areas. So conurbation is a region comprising of large number of cities, towns and other urban areas. So let's see one example for conurbation. West Midland in England, the Ruhr in Germany, Randstad in the Netherlands are example of conurbation. West Midland in England, the Ruhr in Germany, and Randstad in Netherlands are example of conurbations. Mumbai in Maharashtra, Gurgaon, Faridabad in Haryana, Noida in Uttar Pradesh are the conurbation cities of India. So in India, Mumbai in Maharashtra, Gurgaon, Faridabad in Haryana and Noida in Uttar Pradesh are the example of conurbation cities in India. Now let's move on to satellite town. So let's see the definition of satellite town. So what is a satellite town? It is a town designed to house the overpopulation of a majority city, but it is located well beyond the limits of that city. Satellite towns are generally located outside the rural urban fringe. So the satellite towns, they are designed to accommodate the overpopulations of the city, and it is beyond the limit of the rural urban fringe. It is located outside the rural urban border. Then satellite towns occasionally present a look of twin towns such as Deri and Dalmia Nagar in Rohtas district of Bihar. They may be connected with the roads. For example, Patna, Baruni, Varanasi and Hajipur. So these are all the example of satellite towns in India. So it look like a twin towns connecting via the roads. So now let's move on to smart city. So what is the definition of smart city? In an urban region, a city which is very much advanced in terms of infrastructure, real estate, communication and market availability is called smart city. So smart city means a very much advanced urban region is called smart city. Then the first 10 smart cities of India are Bhubaneswar, Pune, Jaipur, Surat, Ludhiana, Kochi, Ahmedabad, Cholapur, New Delhi and Udaipur. So these are all the first 10 smart cities of India. So now let's see the smart cities in Tamil Nadu. So Tamil Nadu has 12 major cities to be transformed as smart cities. They are Chennai, Madurai, Tirunelveli, Tiruchirappalli, Tanjavur, Tirupur, Salem, Vellore, Coimbatore, Thoothukudi, Dindigul and Erode. So these 12 major cities in Tamil Nadu to be transformed as smart cities. So children, World Health Organization, that is WHO, suggests that among other things a healthy city must have a clean and safe environment. It must meet the basic needs of all its inhabitants, involves the community in local government, provides easily accessible health service. So clean and safe environment, it must meet all the needs of the inhabitants and the community must involve in local government and easy access to health service. So now let's see the difference between the rural and urban region. So first one is rural areas are predominantly involved in primary activities, that is agriculture, mining, fishing. Urban areas have domination of secondary and tertiary activities such as industries, trade and commerce. Rural areas are sparsely populated, that is less populated. Urban areas are densely populated. Rural areas, example villages and hamlet. Hamlet is much smaller than a village. Urban areas, example cities and towns. The major work in rural areas are agriculture works. In urban areas, it is non-agricultural works. Then they live a simple and relaxed life, whereas in urban areas, they live a fast and complicated life. So complicated means much difficult life. So I hope you are clear with the distinguish. So children, with this session, Geography 3rd unit, that is population and settlement, is completed. So refer your textbook pages, page number from 176 to 182. and try to answer all the book back questions with the help of this video and your textbook. So I hope you are clear with today's session. Now it's time for evaluation. That is, now it's time for questions. So let's see some evaluation questions. So first one is, what are the classification of races? What is language? In which settlements where most of the people are engaged in secondary and tertiary activities? Write about the main religious life. Define settlement. So children, try to answer all these questions in the notebook which you are maintaining for social science. In case of any doubts, you can go through the whole session video once again. So with this session, population and settlement is completed. The slogan used to be populate or perish. So we can now see that it is more like populate and perish. A sustainable future has to be based on stabilization of both population and consumption. So a sustainable future can be accomplished only by the stabilization of both the population and the consumption. So thank you.